Hi, this is Daisy Joy at Adventure Acres, and this is my favorite part of the day. I've had my chamomile tea. I'm wearing my ridiculously dorky looking Snuggie, my blanket shroud of awesomeness, and I'm just relaxing and sitting here thinking, hey, maybe I should do a video. I'm just sitting here. I could bring you along. Why not? So I thought, well, you know, this might be the most exciting part of my day, but it's probably not as exciting for other people to sit and watch me sip chamomile tea in my super fashion forward Snuggie. So I thought, well, you know, I could talk about something else that would find interesting, and it occurs to me that it's March now, which is National Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. Say that 5 times fast. So I thought, why not talk about that? What is this whole MS thing that Daisy Joy keeps talking about? You know, anybody who's followed my page for a while has had some explanation, but I thought maybe a video might be a good idea. And so why not tell stories about my MS experience and how I got my diagnosis? So here it goes. Multiple sclerosis is a fancy way of saying mini scars. And I have mini scars, and they are on my brain. And they're caused by my own immune system. And the way that I explain it to my kids is that my immune system is kind of like a double agent. Like, it's a good guy that's just going along minding its own business, and then it was kidnapped by bad guys. And they brainwashed it. And then there's a trigger word. And when the trigger word goes off, then it goes like, whoa, and starts attacking my brain. Like, whoa, that will do damage to your brain. And and so, you know, I'm just going along like normal, and I get sick, or I'm a little extra stressed out, or, you know, something happens, and my body yells, Fahrvergnügen, and my immune system goes, ah, and just goes crazy on my brain, and damages it, and that's MS. This is the short version. But, you know, just like electrical wires have an insulating coat around them, you know, like wires in your wall or whatnot, and your brain, the nerves in your brain are kind of similar to that, in that they have this coating around it. It's called myelin, and that's what the immune system attacks when your body yells Fahrvergnügen. And when it eats away at the myelin, then it erodes that, and the electrical signals are disrupted. And we don't know how long I've had MS. I could have had it as far back as childhood, and the neurologists were actually really kind of interested to hear that when I was a kid, I used to have these like really crazy episodes of the hiccups, like for an hour, that my teachers would send me outside my classroom and make me sit on the floor. Rolaids are really good for hiccups, by the way. Anyway, things like that. You know, there are indications that I may have had, you know, different episodes along my childhood. Nothing really definitive came up until 2009. That's when it got ornery. I remember I was in my kitchen, and I was reaching for a cup out of the cupboard, and I was thinking how much work it was and how exhausting it felt. And I thought, that's wrong. You know, there's something wrong with me. So I set up an appointment with my doctor, because that's what you're supposed to do when you feel crushing fatigue. You should set up an appointment with your doctor, because it could be something serious. Case in point. So here I am, and I've got this super crushing fatigue, and I set up the appointment with my doctor. And I get there, and he says, well, but you do have small children at home. So I was a bit dismissed. You know, he ran kind of a basic panel you know, to see if it was something obvious. And he found out that I was slightly anemic. It's, oh, that must be it. And so gave me iron tablets and sent me on my way. And it wasn't until 6 years later that I ended up with the diagnosis of why I was fatigued. But along the way, I had all sorts of random symptoms. Like I had this kind of sharp pain along my jawline that they thought was TMJ. They gave me a mouth guard. And I had a sharp pain in my arm, and they thought it was carpal tunnel, and they gave me a brace, and I had sharp pain in my side, and they thought it was diverticulitis, and gave me antibiotics that made me have an allergic reaction, and was just a mess of random symptoms, and over again, and no answers. And they would come and they would go, and now that I know about multiple sclerosis, that's very typical of MS. But I had no idea. I didn't really know anything about MS until after I was diagnosed with it. So I was going along my merry way, and then December 24th, 2014, we had moved here to the homestead. It was a busy time, and it was very exciting. And it was Christmas Eve. I'm wrapping presents. And my chin goes numb. And my face on my right side goes numb. And my right arm goes numb. And I'm thinking, something really serious is happening here. And I went to the emergency room. But on the way, okay, it's Christmas Eve. We're driving down the road to the emergency room. And there's a cow. A random cow that had decided that today's the day I'm going to be free. And this poor fella's trying to tug this cow across the road, and we're trying to get to the emergency room. I think the Lord loves me enough to put like little episodes of comic relief in the really stressful situations, because my whole life is populated with these sort of bizarre events. Anyway, so we went to the emergency room. They didn't find anything obvious on the CT scan. They did find that I had problems with my thyroid, and so I was okay though to go home. I had a follow-up appointment later on, still had the numbness and tingling, and I had lost my sense of taste and smell also. Right around the holidays, that's like the perfect time for that. And so my primary doctor decided to set up an appointment for an MRI. Well, you know how it is with specialists. It takes a long time to get an appointment. So I didn't get an appointment until February for my MRI. And so there was no recent activity that was happening, sparking off, and that I would have gotten for a diagnosis. But they did come back from the MRI and say that they found something. And what they found was white matter lesions all across my brain, because when you have MS, it shows up as white spots on your MRI. And they said, well, it could be strokes. You could be having strokes. And they prescribed a low-dose aspirin so that I didn't have a big stroke, which was kind of a defining chapter for me, because, you know, I had, my son was just, he was like practically still a baby then, and, you know, and I'm looking at him and wondering, you know, if something happens to me, is he going to even remember me or what I'm like? Or, you know, you can't go through something like that and come out of it on the other side the same way. You know, you lose all patience for any sort of stupidity and drama and things that don't matter are seen for what they are. And even though it was a rough time for me, I feel like it was very defining you know, I feel thankful for it, if that sounds strange. But you know, I feel like it was an important lesson in what my priorities were. So I went through all that, and they said, well, we're going to set up an appointment and we'll check again in 6 months to see how it goes, you know, kind of a wait and see approach. And I'm like, you're telling me that I could stroke out at any moment and you want me to wait and see? No, that's not happening. I have lost patience with all y'all. I'm going to Mayo. So we went up to Rochester, Minnesota, and my husband and I had a lot of fun going to the appointments. It was kind of, my husband can make anything fun, even things there were all sorts of really crazy tests they did on me. I had like electrical zapping and blood tests lots of blood tests, and one of the tests was that they baked me in the oven for an hour after, well, I was naked, and they had painted me with this gold dust stuff. This sounds probably really abstract, but this actually happens. They do this. This is a legitimate test, or so I was told. I'm naked. They paint me with gold dust from head to toe. I have a little modesty cloths, which were not very modest, I will say. And then they bake me in the oven for an hour, and they're waiting to see if I'm going to turn purple. And interesting fact, they found out that I only, I don't sweat properly. Over about 60% of my body does not sweat properly. So you can imagine how fun it would be to be parked in a toasty oven for an hour when you can't sweat properly. I felt like I was dying in there. And I was like in the middle of the desert waiting. And I remember I was closing my eyes and thinking, like fantasizing that I was in the desert and, the rescue helicopter's on its way. You just got to hang in there a little while longer. And the worst part was that they had this crazy like babbling brook sounds coming over the intercom. And I'm like, that is as far from what is happening here right now as could be. This is not some cool creek situation here. There's no water. This is the desert. What are you talking about? Yeah. Getting baked in the ovens does things to you. I don't know. Anyway, so they didn't find anything. All these tests, they found out that I had a vitamin D deficiency that was very severe and could possibly cause heart failure. That was pretty bad. I was scraping the bottom of the barrel. And when they started giving me the vitamin D, I started feeling a lot better. And they found out that I had thyroiditis, which could possibly have been an explanation for all the symptoms. So they're like, oh, well, that's probably it. So they sent me back. Yay. One more appointment in a couple of months. My follow-up MRI. Went for the MRI. I also have a brain tumor up in there. It's a benign meningioma. They still have to check it every 6 months to make sure it stays benign. They're kind of like, we're watching you, benign meningioma. If you start getting non-benign, we're going to come in there and get you. So, they were going to check on it. And when they did, we went up on Friday, got the call on Monday from the neurologist. That's usually not a good sign when you get a call from the neurologist. So we went back up to Mayo, and then they had to do a spinal tap to see. There's markers that they find in the spinal fluid that indicate if it's a multiple sclerosis episode, and they were present. So that was about as clear as a diagnosis as you can get. So then I came back, and I had to figure out what life was like with MS, It was tricky because MS is widespread, strange symptoms, and getting used to it. The pain is maybe one of the worst symptoms. Variations of pain. Sometimes it's like a stabby pain. Like I tried to not flinch because it would bother my children when I did, because they could tell I was in pain. But, you know, when it feels like someone has just plunged an ice pick into your eyeball, it's kind of hard not to flinch. But I kind of feel like I've really toughened up a lot since MS. You know, I feel, well, okay, here's a good example. One of the symptoms that I had was in a sharpshooting pain in my left foot. And then I started having a sharpshooting pain in my right foot. And I was like, oh, great. Now I've got it on both sides. And so I walk out into my kitchen, and as I walk across the floor, I hear this little tap, tap, tap sound. And I realize that it is not an MS pain in my right foot. It is a thumbtack in the bottom of my foot. And I didn't even think about it, because that's what MS is like. It's like having a thumbtack in the bottom of your foot and not really noticing. That was maybe one of the hardest parts of MS, is that I have to make friends with the idea of my relationship with pain. I have sort of a casual regard for pain that might be disturbing enough that I'm walking across the floor with a thumbtack in my foot and not like, that's just how it is. That's a little hardcore. But you know, I think a lot of people don't really realize that pain is sort of an ally. You know, it's a messenger. It says, hey, there's something wrong here. You know, pay attention to this. But when you have MS, pain is kind of like the ally that cries wolf. You know, like, oh, there's something happening here. You know, there's this sensation that there's spiders crawling on you, but there's no actual spiders. Every time I feel the sensation, I look and I say, oh, there's no spiders, obviously. Except for that one time in the garden, that actually was a spider, but I didn't look because I thought it was MS, and so there was like a garden spider like sitting on my shoulder like it was a pirate and all that. So yeah, MS is sneaky like that. But I feel like MS has given me, you know, opportunities to realize what my priorities are and, you know, figure out a lot of really deep and poignant things about life. You know, one of the things is that one of the episodes that I had was I lost color for a while. Like all my colors dimmed down. Like somebody took all the saturation out of my eyeball lenses, and all the colors were dulled. And you know, when the colors came back, it was like I had never seen them before. You know, I wouldn't say that MS is a gift per se, but it's kind of an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to see things differently and to appreciate things better. So that's what MS is for me. It might be a different experience, and usually is for other people, because it's kind of considered a snowflake disease, as I have mentioned in other places. It's different for every person. This is just a little tip of the iceberg of my MS experience, but maybe it will offer a little insight into the world of living with multiple sclerosis. Anyway, so that's what I've got for right now. I've got my Snuggie all ready to go. I think I'll curl up with a good book for a while and say goodnight. So, signing off for now. We'll see you around.